Well, good evening and welcome to Metropol SportsCentre. My name is Sn01Ep13. As I had mentioned earlier before the break, we are going to have a guest in studio. I know most of the times when you're talking about motorcycles, anything that involves engines, the first perception or the first thing that comes to your mind is probably a man driving a motorcycle or operating that kind of thing. But in studio today we have a beautiful lady who's going to be shedding more light about her passion and her interest. So welcome to our studio.
Thank you.
So maybe you could start with your name and what you do.
My name is Mwari. Yeah, I ride motorbike, so I'm into racing, enduro races. We'll talk about that later. And I'm also a tour guide because we do off-road motorcycle tours to off the beaten track places in Kenya, places where people don't get with cars. And we also do off-road training for people who are expecting to do racing and also riding as a hobby or for commuting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's dive right into it. I mean, how did you end up in racing, in enduro or something like that? Was it something that you always wanted to do?
Well, I've always wished to be able to ride a motorbike until the moment where I went to live in India for about a year. And there I decided, okay, I'm going to learn. There were so many ladies in India riding scooters and small motorbikes, and like, yeah, I would like to ride motorbikes. So a few friends of mine wanted to go to a trip on the Himalayas, which is a motorbike trip. And they were like, oh, Grace, you're adventurous, let's go together. And I was like, I don't know how to ride a bike. So they were like, let's teach you how to. And since we did that and did the trip, it was a 2-week trip, I've been hooked to bikes. Like once you love them, you can't go back.
Okay. So
yeah.
I mean, if you compare the population in India and Kenya, it's pretty much more populous. I mean, I hope you didn't knock anybody while you were there.
Actually, I didn't knock anyone, and I didn't get knocked because I think I usually tell my friends, I think the difference is for here people think it's a bit more dangerous, but it's because motorbikes are still new. It's been there for a while, but it's new. For Kenya, it's a bit new, more than it has been in Asia. So in Asia, when drivers are driving on the road, they're aware there might be a motorbike anywhere. In Kenya, it's different. Okay. Not everyone is aware of motorbikes. Okay. Yeah.
So let's talk about the safety measures or the safety structures that you as bikers, dirt bike racers have. Yeah. What safety measures or structures do you have to ensure that anybody that is part of you has to adhere to these set rules and regulations?
Yeah. First of all is ask yourself, why do you want to get into it? Or it's not. If you're going into it for peer pressure, I think you've got it wrong. But if you're going for it because you want it from deep within, then that's perfect. But then the first thing you should do is training. Before you even buy a bike, there are trainers who have bikes. And sometimes you train and you realize, maybe I want to do enduro racing or I want to do motocross racing, which are all off-road, but are quite different. And there are those who want to learn because, yes, I want to be a seasonal rider or ride as a hobby. So there's those things, you get training and you get to realize what is it that I want before you even decide this is the kind of bike I'll buy. Because you might go for a bike first, invest in an expensive bike, and then in the end, after training, you're like, oh, this is not what I really wanted, you know? Yeah, and also gear. You invest more in gear than on the bike you're going to buy. Okay.
So when somebody is starting out, is there like a specific engine capacity that he's supposed to start with? It all depends with the individual?
Well, it depends with the individual, but it's always advisable to start small. Okay. Yeah. It's just point blank, start small. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think I follow you on social media, right? Yeah. So most of the times you're on bike. What are some of the things when you're riding the bike and then you see somebody do, you're like, no, you're not supposed to be doing that?
When I see someone not wearing a helmet, I'm like, oh God, you don't even love yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So last, you mentioned to me that you had a training. Could you kindly tell us what that training was about this past week?
Yes, we had a training in Naivasha. So in our company, we want to build this off-road sport in Kenya. We want to support it as much as we're in the tour business. So we've come into the into the training, into training to build the sport. And we've had a track in Naivasha, and where we train, and like weekend camps where parents bring their kids and during the holidays. So like last weekend was in Naivasha with children, though these children have been racing at the Mwari grounds. And yes, okay. And they'll be representing Kenya and Zimbabwe at the end of August.
Nice.
So we've had a professional trainer from Germany. He used to be, he's an ex-German champion. He's moved to Kenya, and he's willing to share his skills with the riders, off-road riders in Kenya. So that was what we were doing last week in Naivasha, training the kids. And it's really interesting for the kids. They're on holiday, they are busy, they come for a weekend camp, their parents are there, you know.
Okay.
It's really
I didn't even know there was like a competition for dirt bike racing that big. I mean, you mentioned that they are going to Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So, apart from the one that the kids are traveling to Zimbabwe, what are the other ones that you guys have as dirt bikers, circuits that you guys have?
Yeah. So on the enduro side, we have the Kenya National Enduro Championship, which actually does not do it on one track. It's an event that is done, I think, every 2 months. And it happens on different tracks. And for enduro, it's more of an open space. It's like a closed circuit, but open, like a cross country, where it's the bush and over natural obstacles.
Is this where the mud comes
in?
The
mud, the rocks, the bushes, all that. Yeah, so we have that. The last one was done at Lukenya Academy. It's a big farm. There's people who go there for rock climbing, so it has the kind of obstacles that are good for enduro. The next one will be somewhere in Salama, so it just moves around. But then for motocross, that happens at the Jamhuri grounds, and then there is the practice tracks. One is in Limuru, it's called the Larry Off-Road Park, and then we have the Naivasha one that we're using for training. Yeah.
Okay, so what has been people's reception about the whole motocross, the whole of the circuits and the whole biking culture in Kenya? How have people received it?
Well, it's actually growing, and talking from a woman's perspective, we have over probably over 200 or more women riding in Kenya. So some are adventure riders, some are commuters, we have the off-road riders like myself. So it's really growing for the men too, and people are also now going into not just riding, but also wanting to train and get to learn more skills, defensive skills, and move to racing and or long adventures. So it's something that is really growing, and people are really interested into learning what it takes to be safe on a motorbike.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of the perceptions that people have about
women?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Women riders in particular. I mean, what are some of the perceptions that people have? I mean, sometimes when you're driving along the road, you see how sometimes the people are riding bikes are being treated. So what are some of the perceptions that people have about you guys?
Well, it's good and bad.
Let's start with the good.
With the good, there's lots of people in this country that want to support women in motorcycling, because these women you see in motorcycling could be your sister, it could be your auntie, could be your mother. We have moms, we have people who are grandmas and they're riding. So it could be anybody. And there are people out there who are really willing to support us, including the male riders in the biking communities. They do support the women since you like an infant in the motorcycling. So you get to have like a mentor who's with you as you go on with your journey through motorcycling until you can be able to, you know, be alone, do your thing alone. And I find that really good. And it's also a way of empowering women, you know, because I mean, as a hobby or as a sport, it's something that should be open to women. I mean, we're in 2019, yeah? Yes. So the bad side is the side that we don't want to talk about or even think about. Mostly comes with safety, where we as women, it's the same problem as the men go through, which is people not wanting to share the road with motorbikes.
Yeah.
You know, and you're pushed off the road.
Yeah, I see that a lot sometimes.
Yes.
Like, it's really not a good thing to happen. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
So you'll have that driver who will pass and be like, yeah, good. And then you'll have another one who just pushes you off the road, you know.
Yeah.
So you always have to be so aware of what's happening. Then now on the woman's side, one of the challenges is, for example, you're riding for a race, and you know, you have a family, you're a woman, you know, we've got many responsibilities, so part of that being as having a family, sometimes you take a break, and it's a challenge if you're into it as a sport for racing. But if it's for commute, then it doesn't affect you much, but in the sport it will affect you for sure.
So I mean, I don't know whether you guys have a plan. I mean, sometimes you look at TV and you see MotoGP and the likes of that. So are there plans of getting that bike racing to that level?
That's what we're working on.
Okay, so how far?
And it starts with training.
Okay.
So we are at the point of training, because most of us we've learned it as a hobby. So I'm talking in general, we're really good at what we do, but then we don't know the right skills. Like when you're taught, when you're going through the motorbike lessons for off-road, then you go through skills such as body positioning, clutch and throttle control, you know, those kind of things. What's the right thing to do? How should you sit when you're in gravel? How should you sit when you're in slippery places? That we have no idea. We just move. So training is the first thing that you should do, and not training like we want to do stunts or something. You start with the basics.
So the stunts are an added extra, I guess.
Stunts are an added
extra.
Yes.
Okay, so as we probably finish, maybe there's somebody who's watching and will be interested to be part of you guys. What do they do to be part of you guys?
So for off-road riding, all you need is to train. I still emphasize on training. You need to train, then have an off-road capable bike, which of course you look at things as the tire sizes, the ground clearance, you know, a bike that is off-road capable, because of course, you know, you cannot take a street bike off-road. So that's it. When you have that, then there's people in the off-road sector who are willing to help you, and that's how I started. When I started off as a road rider on the street, and when I wanted to go off-road, then I met all these people, big community of riders who do off-road, and they were like, Grace, we're going on a ride on a Sunday, come, let's go, and they teach you. So it's the same thing up to now. You have an off-road capable bike, or a friend is willing to borrow you his or hers, and just join the rides on the weekends, and whenever there's an enduro race or a motocross race, just try and do one. You learn something. You can start with, you don't want any points for the race, but I want to try it, you know, and that way you grow. Okay,
just before we finish, there are two points that you mentioned that I think it will be good to probably talk about. Maybe it would be good if you mentioned what are the tire sizes that are there. So is there like a small size? From what size? What's the range of tire sizes that you have? Probably off-road and on-road.
So off-road, for the enduro and motocross races, or any off-road riding, it's usually between it ranges between a tire size 18 for the rear and a 21 for the front. That's the average. Then on the road you have now the smaller ones. You have like a 17, 18. So on the road you don't need the bigger one. Because it's smooth surfaces.
And everything.
But then off-road you need the bigger tires, bigger diameter, because then you're going over obstacles. It's unpaved ground. So you need that to be able to imagine you're passing a trench with a small tire.
You won't even move a single inch. So finally, there's this perception that people have that biking is for people who have money, or something like that.
Yeah.
So what can you say about that? What are probably the ranges? I think you work in a motorcycle company,
Yeah.
local motorcycle company.
Yeah.
So probably you could mention what's like the prices within which somebody can start with, because out here there is perception that, you know, if you want to be a biker, then you need to have a lot of money. Yes.
Well, I think that's a bad perception, because it's not true. It's just what we think. I didn't have money when I started.
Okay.
I started with a second-hand bike when I started off-road riding.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be like a new...
It doesn't have to be a new bike.
Okay.
Just get a second-hand bike, learn with it,
Okay.
you know. And the bikes, the prices range. It depends. So you'd find a bike that starts from, let's say, 200,000, though you could still get cheaper than that, but I would say a good one that that is reliable, from 200,000 Kenya shillings up to 1.5 million.
Okay.
So it's your choice.
Okay.
Yeah. But then once you get it, if you maintain your bike well, service it, then you'll not have problems. It's expensive when you do not take care of it.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming in studio, Mwari, and sharing insights about biking in Kenya. So that has been Grace Mwari talking to us about biking in Kenya, some of the safety concerns, perceptions that people have, and probably if you're interested in being a biker. So we take a short commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking about Events Watch. So what's going to be happening this weekend, and where do you need to be this coming weekend? This is Metropol Sports Center. My name is Sn01Ep13.